Child marriage used to be legal in America, and the story of this marriage is one of the most disturbing things I've ever read about. This is 9-year-old Unice Winstead, and this is her legal husband at the time, Charlie Johns. So on January 19th, 1937, Unice, who was 9 years old at the time, left her mother's house. On that morning, she told her parents that she was going out to buy herself a new doll. But instead, the 9-year-old was headed to the courthouse to meet her 22-year-old future husband.
What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to my channel. How you guys doing? If you guys are brand new here to the channel, you guys don't know what we do, don't worry, I'm gonna break it down for you guys, man. We talk about the most scariest and creepiest videos on the net, on the web, from YouTube videos to TikTok videos, IG Reels, Facebook, anything weird, unusual, unexplained, you can find right here on this channel. I just want to thank all my supporters, man, who's coming back to the channel each and every single day, watching the videos entirely, man. Comment it down below, and most importantly, hitting that thumbs up button on each and every single video drop. You guys help with growing the community. I greatly appreciate the support. Found this video for you guys today, man. Let's do what we do best, seekers. Say it with me, y'all. Y'all know what we do. Let's see the truth.
Disturbing facts that will ruin your day. Firstly, you know these vacuum toilets that are most commonly used on planes and cruise ships? Well, there have been many reports of them sucking the rectum out of people when they flush. Next, this is just disappointing. 1 in 4 Americans actually believe that the sun rotates around the earth. Now, studies show that the average person will wait 5 months of their lifetime for red lights to turn green. You know when you're watching a movie or TV show and you hear these laugh tracks in the background? Well, most of them were recorded in the 50s, so you're hearing dead people laugh. This will ruin your childhood. The Red Power Ranger, Ricardo Medina, pleaded guilty to killing his roommate with a sword. Finally, you are now closer to death than you were when you started this video.
Creepy facts.
Here are some cool things about animals that you probably didn't know. Ants will form living rafts with their bodies. Some will drown so others can float. Bearded dragons can change their sex in the egg depending on the temperature. Flying snakes will flatten their bodies and glide through the air like living frisbees. That is absolutely terrifying. Koalas have fingerprints that are so human-like that they have been confused in police investigations for humans. Wombats poop cubes, and not only that, they stack them like bricks to mark their territory. Male antagonists mate non-stop for 14 hours, then die from immune system collapse. A female giant panda is only capable of conceiving a cub for 24 to 72 hours once a year. Salmon return to their birthplace to spawn, then die. Arctic terns migrate 50,000 miles annually to take advantage of both the summer conditions in the Arctic and in Antarctica. Wisdom the albatross is still laying eggs at nearly 70 years old and has been tracked since 1956. Wasps save $417 billion in crops each year by eating pests. Pistol shrimp stun prey with bubble shockwaves, disrupting small reef ecosystems. Termites do actually eat wood faster when listening to rock music. Penguins will actually nap thousands of times a day, which helps them survive these brutal Antarctic conditions they live in. Parasitic wasps will inject spiders with venom and force them to build baby nests. Damn.
30 men could beat up Mike Tyson, so 100 could definitely murk a gorilla. But Tyson would physically ruin at least one and probably some of those men. And that's where the problem's at. Let's break it down. Gorillas are non-violent and actually go out of their way to avoid conflict. 100 men pulling up for smoke would have this energy. And speaking of energy, gorillas have terrible endurance. They fight the way they... The fades they run are like how they're hung, not long at all. You have to remember, the main thing that made humans such a nightmare for the thumbless was the power of friendship and stamina. The gorilla's liable to catch a heart attack. Also, I'm gonna be real with you, y'all overrate gorillas by an insane degree. I know that because this right here should have never been a debate. A gorilla's not finna run through 100 men. And also, y'all talking like this a movie fight scene. This ain't 100 one-on-ones, this 1 on 100. Jujutsu Kaisen level jumping's the only outcome. 1 hyena to a lion is a chew toy. 20 is a life lesson. Now, there's a catch. Gorillas have a stronger bite force than a grizzly bear, and a gorilla batter arm to the back would probably crack your constitution like a glow stick. This is what 100 people looks like. 100 men could kill a gorilla. 100 men could not kill a gorilla without some meeting Batman's parents, especially if the gorilla's fighting for its life. Someone's getting their eyes gouged out, someone's getting their arm bit through, and someone's going to be able to use Face ID 20 feet away. Now it's a question of altruism over ability. The bystander effect would do numbers, and no one's going to want to be the guy to get KIA'd at first contact. So to recap, 100 men could kill a gorilla. 100 men wouldn't kill a gorilla. They get sabotaged by self-preservation. The gorilla would be overwhelmed or at some point exhausted, but not before getting absolutely medieval on some unlucky men. We have strayed so far from the days of Harambe. The more you know, for now.
Well, see, because what do you guys think about that 100 man versus what gorilla debate, man? That dude just blew up, bro, and people just started running with it. He broke it down for us, man. I don't think, man, it would end up like you said, like how people would think it was, man. There definitely will be some losses. Who gonna be the one, like you say, make first contact? Not I. Let me be like the last one, bro. I can't be the first.
Child marriage used to be legal in America, and the story of this marriage is one of the most disturbing things I've ever read about. This is 9-year-old Unice Winstead, and this is her legal husband at the time, Charlie Johns. So on January 19th, 1937, Unice, who was 9 years old at the time, left her mother's house. On that morning, she told her parents that she was going out to buy herself a new doll. But instead, the 9-year-old was headed to the courthouse to meet her 22-year-old future husband, Charlie Johns. So at the time of this affair, there was no age limit on marriage in Tennessee. I mean, technically, someone could have married an adult and a baby if they paid off the minister and got everything to go through properly.
Sick.
And so on that day, 22-year-old Charlie offered a local Baptist preacher named Walter $1, which equates to around $21 today. And the preacher accepted the offer, came into the church, and married the 9-year-old to the 22-year-old. I mean, obviously, words cannot possibly describe how disturbing images like these are. Now, at first, both Charlie and Unice's parents disapproved of the marriage, but after some thought, they eventually approved the marriage, and they just allowed them to live together and be married. Now, sadly, Unice dropped out of school at the age of 9 after her husband, Charlie, pulled her out, and she began giving birth to their children at age 15. They'd eventually have 8 children together. I just cannot believe that shit like this used to happen in America. Comment your thoughts on this below.
She went to a party and ended up in the freezer. Nobody knows how, and the hotel kept silent about it. Her name was Kenneka. She was 19 from Chicago, and one night she told her mom that she was going to go bowling with her friends, but instead she goes to a hotel to a party. Her friends call her mom saying that they lost track of her at the party, and her mom's like, wait, what party? They told her that they left Kenneka in the hotel hallway while they went to go back to the room to grab her phone and the car keys, and when they came back, she was gone. Her mom, Teresa, she was pissed, yeah, but mostly she was super worried. She rushes to the hotel, and she is begging the staff to show her the hotel surveillance footage so that she can find her daughter, but they refuse, and they tell her that she has to file a missing persons report first. So she goes to the police, and guess what they say? You gotta wait a while until she shows up. Like, what? That's giving we don't care. Her family starts banging on the hotel doors, desperate to find her, and instead of helping, the hotel calls the police for disturbing the peace. And when the police finally decide to do their job, it has already been 20 hours. And when they check the cameras, they see Kenneka. She's alone, stumbling through the hallways, clearly intoxicated. And then at one point, she wanders into a restricted kitchen area and then just disappears. Hours later, a hotel employee opens that freezer in the same kitchen and finds her body inside. Face down, her left arm is pinched underneath her. She has a shoe that's missing and a cut on her foot. And then her shirt, it is pulled under her jacket, exposing her chest. Now, go ahead and tell me how that's an accident. The one area with no cameras in the exact same place where she ends up. That's not a coincidence. That is somebody who knew the layout of that hotel. Someone who knew exactly where the cameras were and weren't. But the police, they still ruled it an accident, said that she just froze to death. But her mom does not believe that. She said, and I quote, I feel like they helped my child. And honestly, I do too, because if the hotel would have shown that footage from the start, if police hadn't made her wait, maybe Kenneka would have been saved. But what do you guys think? Was it an accident or a cover-up?
Yes, this really did happen. In 2015, a man woke up to a strange post-it note sitting on his desk. On it was a to-do list that he didn't recognize in handwriting that didn't look like his. Since he was up late the night before doing some work, he assumed he must have written out the list when he was half asleep and kind of forgot about it, so he just crumples it up and throws it away. 2 weeks later, he wakes up to dozens of these post-it notes all over his wall, and they're all blank except for one that, in the same weird handwriting, says, "Our landlord isn't letting me talk to you." Now feeling totally freaked out that some crazy person is crawling around his apartment at night, he starts looking for signs of a break-in, but there aren't any. Instead of calling the police, he shares his experience on Reddit asking for help, and one user's comment literally saves his life. Turns out the man was writing the notes to himself and then forgetting, because his brain was slowly dying due to a carbon monoxide leak that was only discovered because a user suggested he install a detector.
Man, Reddit saved somebody's life. What the heck? We've heard stories on Reddit of how before there've been some crimes, but that's a new one.
Everyday things we do that feel illegal but are not. Leaving a store without buying anything. Sometimes I just buy something cheap just because it feels so weird. And how about using the restroom without buying anything? It just feels so wrong. Calling in sick to work when you're actually sick. For some reason I think like my boss thinks I'm lying to him. Next, asking a salesperson about an item and end up not buying it. I sometimes wish I apologized to them for wasting their time. And finally, leaving class when the bell rings and not when the teacher dismisses you.
That was the
If you
one
ever feel like
thing,
you're being
bro.
haunted, run. Or call Zan Kui. Click the plus drop like, tag a friend, share with 3, or you might become haunted. Zan Kui is a demon hunter, also the king of the ghosts. Zan Kui is there to protect people from the ghosts and anything supernatural. He also commands an army of 80,000 demons, not someone to mess with. When Zan Kui was alive, he was an extremely bright student, but sadly committed suicide. The ruler of the underworld saw the potential in Zan Kui and gave him unlimited power, making him the king of the ghosts and the demon hunter. If you made it this far, comment down below who I should do next.
Haunted dolls from
Crazy story.
around the world. America. Annabelle.
Annabelle, yup. You got movies about her.
Japan. Okiku.
Kiku. Looks like human hair.
Singapore. The Barbie doll on the girls' shrine. Australia. Letter.
Seen her before, yup.
Brazil. Farfan.
That didn't even look like a doll. What the hell is that? Looks like a pig.
Canada. Mandy the doll.
What are you doing?
Italy. Cuba the doll.
All her weird vibes, bro. We know we don't do dolls over here, Seekers, man. That's one thing we don't do.
She killed her mum so she wouldn't find out about her secret, but now the whole world knows. It was the 3rd of March 2020 when police were called to do a welfare check on a property in Ohio at around 1 p.m. Brenda Powell lived in the house. She was the 50-year-old mother of Sydney Powell. And Brenda worked at Akron Children's Hospital and was such a grafter, and they absolutely loved her there. She treated the kids at the hospital like they were her own kids, always so loving and caring. Now, the welfare check came about after Brenda had been on the phone with Sydney's former school, the University of Mount Union. Now, during the phone call, the member of staff that she was on the line to suddenly heard banging and screaming, and then the line went dead. And he actually tried to call her number back, and it just rang out and out. And after ringing back twice and getting no answer, he knew he had to ring the police. When officers arrived at the property, they found Brenda Powell in a pool of blood on the floor, and tragically, after being rushed to hospital, she was pronounced dead. Investigators knew they needed to work out what had led to this horrific murder. Now, the conversation that Brenda had been having on the day with the school on the phone was absolutely vital to finding out who was responsible. Brenda had in fact been made aware on the call that 19-year-old Sydney, who was, as I said, her daughter, had in fact been kicked out of the school school, and she was no longer a student there. It was no coincidence that it was during this phone call that the mum had been murdered. Now, when police found her body at her home, the only other person at the scene was Sydney, her daughter, and Sydney had an interesting tale to tell. She told police there'd been a break-in, she heard a noise, and apparently her mum had told her to run for her life. She said she'd heard screaming and then had run back to her mum and found Brenda on the floor. Now that just sounds suspicious to me. Like, why would you run for your life because you know there's a danger, hear screaming and decide to run straight back into that danger? After being questioned, it was very clear that the officers were not buying this story that Sydney was telling, so she actually started to tell a different tale. She would try and plead insanity. She said she could barely remember anything from that day. She just remembered crying and feeling like she needed to run away. Brenda had suffered 30 stab wounds and had also been struck in the head. This was obviously a very brutal attack. But Sydney's defense in court tried to claim that she was suffering from an undiagnosed schizophrenic episode and that she killed her mum while experiencing like a psychotic break. However, it is very rare for people with schizophrenia to act violently, and it was concluded that Sydney had been exaggerating her symptoms to try and get away with this murder. She was thankfully found guilty of murder and given life in prison, but is eligible for parole after 15 years.
New shocking information about Jarrett Williams, the 5th grade teacher who wrote the grooming love letter to his student. The school board did not even ask him to resign. They moved him to a position that was not around any students. But then I guess as the story broke is when he resigned. Now, I went onto the Facebook of Gullet Elementary and I found a lot more photos of this teacher. I've got more video of when the mom and dad approached the school board complaining about this teacher and his actions with this love letter. And what's shocking, as you're going to see on the video, is that even these, what are they, superintendents, these people on the board are saying that they have heard more from public comment than they did anywhere else. Now, apparently there is an investigation that is going on, and there are supposed to be non-actual, as they say, non-actual charges filed against him at this point. But based on this letter and the 45 minutes he spent alone with her on Valentine's, we don't even know if there's any other time, as well as this comment about the slime, which don't get me started, there really needs to be a criminal investigation on this guy.
To the core, that shocked me.
This is horrific, and I commend her bravery to speak up, because she's probably safe.
I have a copy of the 2-page handwritten textbook grooming letter that was written by this teacher and given to my 11.
Says they reassigned Williams to a position that didn't have any contact with students, but now it isn't just parents asking if the optics of the district were prioritized over student safety.
I learned more about this case from public comment than I did from the superintendent.
The board voting to accept Williams' resignation while under investigation, which will still result in his file being flagged.
How did they have to learn more from the public than the actual people who are supposed to be doing their job? Crazy world we living in.
Shortly after this photo was taken, the beautiful bride would be killed. I'm True Crime Caitlin, and this is the death of Samantha Miller. On the 28th of April 2023, 37-year-old Eric Hutchinson and 34-year-old Samantha Miller finally tied the knot in front of 120 guests on Folly Beach in North Carolina. They had a beautiful ceremony and spent the rest of the evening celebrating. At around 10 p.m, Eric and Samantha, along with 2 other people, climbed into a golf cart and began to make their way back to their accommodation nearby, when they would be ploughed into by a car going 65 miles an hour, 40 miles over the speed limit. Driving that car was 26-year-old Jamie Lee Komorowski, who was drunk out of her mind over 3 times the legal limit. Eric and the 2 other passengers were severely injured, whereas Samantha, who was still wearing her wedding dress, would die at the scene. Upon the policeman's arrival, Jamie Lee, who was drunk and slurring her words, told the police that something had crashed into her. He would be arrested on several charges, including 3 DUIs and reckless homicide. Jamie would spend the next 10 months in jail. However, in March of this year, she was released on a $150,000 bond and was placed under house arrest. She must abide to strict conditions, including not leaving the house unless it was for medical attention or a court date. She must wear a tracker around her ankle, all while she awaits trial. She's expressed no remorse for what she did to Samantha, and allegedly in a jail call between her and her dad, she was complaining that this was going to ruin her life. In another call, her and her sister are chatting, where Jamie says that within the next 2 years, she should be living her best life. When her trial finally comes, if she is convicted of all of her charges, she could face up to 25 years in prison. Sadly, Eric and Samantha's mum Lisa are in a messy court dispute over Samantha's inheritance. Eric has filed a wrongful death lawsuit, which could see him receiving upwards of millions of dollars for Samantha's death. And Lisa, who has challenged the validity of her daughter and son-in-law's marriage, has said that she believes she should be the sole beneficiary. Allegedly, Eric has offered to give Lisa half of any money that he receives. However, he and Lisa are sadly going through a very messy legal battle.
And they arguing over money, man. He offered to give half and they still argue? Bro, money, bro. It ruins everything.
She's convinced she went on a date with a possible serial killer. This girl named Tiffany Matthews made a video talking about when she was in college, she went on a date with this guy and immediately started to notice red flags. She met this guy at a bar, they immediately hit it off and ended up exchanging phone numbers. They had their first date, and when he picked her up, it was in a very nice, expensive car, but she found it strange that he didn't know how to work the car. For example, he didn't know how to open the car door, and if that's your car, wouldn't you know how to open the door at least? So she just assumed that this wasn't his car. Everything went well for the first date, and since Tiffany was going to be busy with studying, they weren't able to plan a second date right away. Once they were able to find time to get together, he suggested that they go to a park late at night. She agrees, and when he shows up, he's about an hour and a half late, and he's in a completely different car. This second car that he is driving is completely run down, and immediately he tells her it's because he has dogs and he doesn't want his dogs to get his nice car dirty, and he was running late because he was getting gas. They then make their way to Gasworks Park, which is in Seattle, Washington. While on this date, Tiffany started to feel very uneasy about this guy because he started making jokes about unaliving her and told her that he was so excited to see her that he wore 2 different pairs of shoes. This park that they were at was very secluded and obviously very dark since they were there at night, and she was feeling very uneasy because he was still continuing with these jokes, so she ended up lying to him, telling him that her dad was a cop and that her roommates had her location, which was true. He replied to her saying, "Well, how accurate is your location?" which is a very odd thing to say. At this point, Tiffany is thinking of any kind of way she can get away from this date, so she just tells him that she needs to study and needs to go back home. Tiffany does not want to go back into this car with this guy and would rather just walk home, but then she remembers that she left her purse in his car, so she has no choice but to go back to his car. When they arrived at his car, she opened the door and grabbed her purse, and she just happened to look up at the gas gauge, and it was nearly empty. At this point, Tiffany felt her heart drop because he had told her he was running late because he was getting gas, so now that she knew that he was lying, what was he really doing that whole time? Luckily, right next to this guy's car was another car parked with a couple inside, so Tiffany knocks on their window and asks if she can wait with them until her ride comes because she's feeling unsafe on her date. As soon as that guy saw her talking to the car next to him, he immediately sped off, she blocked him, and never spoke to him again. If you're ever in a situation like this, it's always important to trust your intuition because this could have ended bad really fast.
This girl believes that her stepfather could be Mr. Cruel. In the 1980s in Australia, Mr. Cruel would torture and assault children while their families were gone, and he never got caught for it. He also never left any evidence behind, and he would mentally torture all of the families. Now, this girl posted on Reddit, on the Mr. Cruel subreddit, it's the top of all time if you want to search it up yourself, about how she believes her stepdad is Mr. Cruel, and she listed out these 10 reasons. In all of Mr. Cruel's known assault locations, her dad worked right near there. He also apparently drove the same make and model of car that they described him having. He asked relatives to use a video camera, however, she never saw her dad really use it for anything. She also goes on to say how there is a violent/SA issue on her dad's side of the family. Apparently, she also has trauma from her childhood, and then her parents got a divorce 6 months after that trauma happened. She didn't state what the trauma exactly was, but she did say the 6 months later divorce that her parents got lined up with Mr. Cruel's last victim. Mr. Cruel was known to force feed his victims. Apparently, her father loved to force feed them or feed them a lot. She also stated one of the police sketches looked exactly like her father and that it could have been a photo of him. Her last reason kind of vague. She just said her dad's smart, knows about science. Now, she posted 2 updates on Reddit. She got educated on the case and the information, and she went to the police and dropped 2 names. Apparently, the 2 names she dropped are on a list of people being investigated for being linked to Mr. Cruel's attacks. Her last update stated that they're investigating this heavily and she doesn't want to ruin the investigation or, criminalize her father if he's not the guy. She said she would update if there is an update. There hasn't been one in about 340 days. Now, could this be legit or could this be somebody just making up something for attention? That is the biggest speculation people have right now. A lot of people can just make anything up on the internet, vague statements or just research a story and make precise statements. True. Nobody's going to know if it's true or not. Let me know your thoughts about the story, and if you haven't yet, go read the full Reddit post and let me know.
2025 just got even crazier, part 1.
Let's talk about
Firstly, passengers on a flight departing from Hong Kong International Airport left after midnight January 1st. Well, due to them crossing time zones, they landed in Los Angeles International Airport on December 31st at 8:30 p.m., allowing them to celebrate New Year's 2 times in a row. Next, in the country of Zambia, on New Year's Eve, a police officer who was intoxicated freed 13 prisoners so they could celebrate the new year out in public. Well, there is now currently a manhunt for the 13 prisoners, and the police officer was arrested. Finally, one thing I was not expecting to happen in 2025 already is to have a judge wearing a VR headset to experience a crime in first person. Do you guys feel like this is the right way to use technology?
These teenagers were killed in their sleep by the last person anyone would expect. It was the 1st of November 2018 in Oklahoma. Kason Tolliver was 18 years old. His sister was 16-year-old Chloe. They also had a younger 14-year-old sister who remains anonymous. Kason was a talented football player and was a senior in high school. Chloe was described as a sweet, kind girl who loved cheerleading. Their mum was 43-year-old Amy Hall. In the early hours of the morning on the day in question, she crept into her son's bedroom and shot him in the head. He was instantly killed. Now, his friend was sleeping over in the same room and started to call police. Amy then walked into Chloe's room that she shared with her younger sister and shot them both. The younger sister was grazed in the neck but managed to flee to the bathroom. It was there that she convinced her mum to hand over the gun. Police sped round to the scene at around 6:30 a.m. that morning and rushed Chloe to hospital. Tragically, she was declared brain dead and passed away 4 days after. Meanwhile, Amy had fled the house and was involved in a high-speed car chase with police. She was eventually apprehended and taken into custody. Amy later claimed that she killed her children in order to save them from her estranged husband. There was allegedly an ongoing custody battle. She has pleaded guilty and been sentenced to life in prison.
Those custody battles always have tragic endings.
There is a shack called the Devil's Toy Box in Louisiana, and for some reason people who go in lose their mind. Do you know the tingly feeling you get when you eat a pineapple?
Yeah.
Well, that's because the pineapple is eating you. It has an enzyme called bromelain, and that enzyme eats meat, which you're made of. Now you can check if your phone activity is being monitored. Just click on share, slide all the way to the end, click more. And if any apps appear before your contacts, you should delete it immediately. Sharks have been around for 420 million years, meaning they have survived all 4 big mass extinctions, making them older than dinosaurs, Mount Everest, and even some trees on this planet.
Damn.
The person who invented homework came up with the idea as a punishment for students.
It worked.
Morbid Facts, Part 476. This 2022 photo shows 40-year-old Russian mother Anna Uskova moments before she jumped into a frozen river. She was apparently following a Christian Orthodox tradition of Epiphany and believed that jumping into the frigid water would rid her of sin. However, she jumped in at a bad angle and was quickly swept away by the powerful current, trapping her under the ice. Her husband immediately jumped in to rescue her while their children screamed in horror, but his efforts were unsuccessful and her body was recovered 10 days later. This was the truck belonging to Missouri town bully Ken McElroy after he was killed in broad daylight by an angry mob in 1981. Over the course of his life, McElroy was accused of dozens of felonies, including assault, child molestation, burglary, animal cruelty, arson, and statutory grape. He always managed to escape serving time until eventually being convicted of attempted murder, but McElroy appealed and was released on bond before he immediately threatened to kill several people. An angry mob then showed up at the bar he was drinking at and shot him several times in his truck while he was attempting to leave. Despite over 40 different witnesses, nobody admitted to seeing the murder take place, and no one has been charged to this day.
They stuck true to the code. They said stitches. Snitches get stitches, bro. That's definitely not it.
Facts about the ocean that are scarier than any horror movie. First up, I bet you didn't know that you can literally melt in the ocean. Because in the deep sea, there's something called hydrothermal vents that can reach up to 750 degrees Fahrenheit, which will allegedly cause your body to melt. But by then, you probably wouldn't even notice because all your bones would have likely been crushed by the pressure. The next fact is honestly even scarier to think about. You know how we have so many scary stories about sea creatures, like sirens, the Loch Ness Monster, or giant squids? Well, a lot of the creatures that used to be just a story are slowly being discovered as real. For example, the giant squid, which scientists found were not only real and over 59 feet in length, but are also cannibals. If that's not bad enough, here's more. Because the ocean is basically a giant graveyard. In 2014, researchers diving into an underwater cave in Mexico found the remains of a girl estimated to be 13,000 years old. Meaning there's a high likelihood that if you go missing or drown that you would probably never be found. There's also 10 million viruses in every drop of seawater, meaning viruses in the ocean outnumber all of the stars in the Milky Way. The actual number is estimated to be 1 nonillion, which is a number I've never heard before, but here it is written out. That itself makes me never want to go swimming in the ocean again. Follow for more.
Extinct animal.
Hey man, be careful when y'all be swimming and jumping into those lakes when y'all doing dish, bro. Cause now there's 1 million viruses in the water, man. Didn't even know that was a damn number till today. We learning.
Most scientists are close to reviving. Firstly, the woolly mammoth. It was believed to have gone extinct 25,000 years ago, but scientists discovered hundreds that just died recently. So they're planning to put its DNA inside African elephants, and they expect to bring them back in the next 5 years. Next, dodo birds were hunted to extinction 400 years ago, but a preserved head was recently discovered. By mixing that DNA with a maned pigeon, dodo birds should be coming back in 15 years. Finally, expect to see saber-toothed tigers outside soon, because scientists discovered DNA preserved in tar pits, and they plan to combine it with African lions. So this 10-inch toothed beast should be coming back in 10 years.
Morbid facts.
Can't mess with the
Part
ecosystem.
477. In 2016, a man who'd been continuously stalking Miranda Cosgrove apparently plotted to murder her. For 3 days, the stalker had been burying various weapons in Cosgrove's backyard, including knives and a rope. One day, he spent hours pacing around the area and eventually shot at a woman who looked like the iCarly actress. The man then performed self-immolation before turning the gun on himself right in Cosgrove's yard. Miranda has stated that she still lives in the same house, but refuses to stay there alone ever since that traumatic incident. Earlier this year, inmates at a Miami prison managed to birth a child without ever even meeting each other face to face. 23-year-old Joanne DePaz and 29-year-old Daisy Link, both in prison for separate murder charges, started talking to each other through the air vents before falling in love and eventually wanting kids. Using a makeshift line made out of bedding, they passed Joanne's erectoplasm through the vents, while Daisy used a yeast infection applicator to inseminate herself. Against all odds, the plan worked, and the baby was born healthy. The pair are now in different prisons, while Joanne's mother is raising their baby girl.
Things invented by...
Vent baby, bro? Do you know how freaking, like, I guess inventive you have to come up with a method to get freaking pregnant in prison by using the damn vent? You'd be a top tier thinker. Woo.
Different countries. US. Bulb.
First light bulb.
India. 0 digit. France. Bicycle. England. Computer.
Really?
Malaysia. USB. Germany. Car. Japan. Laptop. Italy. Battery. Sweden. Dynamite.
Hybrid animal.
Okay.
You won't believe exist. Dog plus cat. Cubby.
Copy.
Lion plus tiger.
Liger. Aren't ligers, they're supposed to be like really rare, right? But I heard they don't live long because of the combination.
Goat plus sheep. Geep. Jaguar plus lion. Jaglion.
Jack, man.
Polar bear plus grizzly bear. Roller bear.
These are some weird combos. I've never seen them before. The Jaglin, bro, was the most shocking to me. Goes to show you, man. The genetic part, I guess. You mix them up.
Animal facts, we're
Something
leaving in
happened.
2024 because this app's going ghost and I am not doing this again. Black Panther's not an animal, it is not real. Panther means Panthera, so any cat in genus Panthera is a panther. So any of these cats being black is a Black Panther. This is a Black Panther. This is a Black Panther. This is AI. But it's hypothetically a Black Panther. Otters don't do this, and the fact that some of y'all think otherwise makes me angry. Male otters literally kidnap babies to hold as ransom for food. I promise you a pretty privileged hydro honey badger ain't operating off compassion. Elephants don't think you're cute, I don't know where that came from. Actually, I do, but that's for another video. But no, elephants don't think of us as cute, they think of us as pale predators. Probably why they life retire 500 people a year, allegedly. These aren't killer whales, they're whale killers. They're giant biracial assault dolphins. Well, actually, anything like a dolphin, whale, porpoise, whatever with teeth is a toothed whale. Dolphins are a type of toothed whale, and orcas are a type of dolphin. So every orca is a dolphin, every dolphin's a type of toothed whale, but not every toothed whale is a dolphin. Also, every tortoise is a turtle, but not every turtle is a tortoise. Pandas aren't bad at life, they're bad at adjustments. We've done way more to them than for them. I remember folks tried to get two pandas in Hong Kong to ménage à deux for 10 years, but they thought the Oreo incels were too stupid to mate. A couple months of quarantine and isolation later, the pandas were making a beast with two backs, and I think that pretty much sums up our relationship with them. Also, alpha wolves aren't real, it's literally just appearance. If you call your father alpha, that's your own omega business, not mine. In 2005, a 37-year-old man from Houston, Texas decided to go to the beach to fish. The sand on this beach was super compact, meaning that it kind of felt like concrete. So it wasn't uncommon for people to take their cars on this beach. And on this specific day, John decided to drive his truck all the way up close to the shore where he unloaded and began to fish. He waded into the water so that he was about waist deep and began to fish. After a few hours of fishing, the weather started to get a little worse. And John, who had been out there for most of the day at this point, was beginning to feel a little bit tired. So he decided that he would take a nap. But instead of taking a nap inside of his truck, which was right next to him, he decided to crawl underneath it and sleep under the truck. And soon, John drifted to sleep. Hours went by and soon it was dark outside. Unfortunately, while John was sleeping, the tide came up and his truck began to sink in the soft sand. And in doing this, it crushed him to death.
The craziest coincidences ever, part 3. Two men accidentally swam into each other at a pool party at the Flamingo Hotel in Las Vegas. But when they looked at each other, they were shocked when they realized they were identical. They even had the same hat and sunglasses, and their builds were exactly the same. In 1945, a man named Tsutomu Yamaguchi was on a business trip in Hiroshima when an atomic bomb hit the city. He was slightly injured in the blast, but he survived. After this, he returned to his home in Nagasaki, which took 3 days because of the chaos. He went to his office and tried to explain what happened in Hiroshima to his boss, but his boss didn't believe him. Then another atomic bomb dropped on Nagasaki right next to his office, but he survived again. When he managed to get home, he found his house had been significantly damaged. But miraculously, his wife and children also survived the blast. So the question is he the luckiest or unluckiest man alive?
This terrifying serial killer.
Luckiest man alive. 2 bombings back to back. He's the GOAT, bro. I don't know what else to say, man. That's good activity.
Kidnapped a 17-year-old girl who was able to brainwash and outsmart the serial killer. This is a case that you guys have been begging me to cover ever since I started posting. Bobby Joe Long had a terrible childhood like most serial killers do. His mother gave birth to him when she was only 17 years old, and then his father abandoned him and his mom when he was only 2. And Bobby's mom was a pretty bad mom, and Bobby had some mommy issues because of it. His mother was really neglectful, always out partying, leaving Bobby home alone, and then his mom would bring home these random men for like a hookup, a one-night stand. But the thing is, Bobby and his mother could only afford a 1-bedroom apartment, and Bobby and his mom shared the same bed, meaning that his mother was bringing home these random men and sleeping with them on the same mattress that her son Bobby was sleeping in. And somehow that's not the worst of it, because Bobby and his mom shared the same bed up until Bobby was a teenager, meaning his mom was hooking up with random men in the same bed as her teenage son. And when Bobby was younger, when this was happening, he used to pretend to be asleep and just lay there as silently and still as possible. But when he got older, he started to watch his mom hook up with these men. And
that damages his psyche, bro. I guess that's the best way I could put that, man. Sharing a bed with your mom till you're that old, and she's doing that in front of you, that will scar you for life. That doesn't excuse his actions, but
I don't know if it's just me, but animal nerds piss me off, bro. Because for some reason, they always have to tell you the darkest fact about your favorite animal that you didn't even ask.
And I'm gonna do it again. Matter of fact, what's your favorite animal?
Favorite animals are otters and seals.
Say less. If you see a sea otter with its nose ripped off, it's almost definitely a female, because the otter mating process involves a male clamping his jaws around her face to hold her in place. Consent sold separately. In fact, it might be discontinued. The males can get so aggressive that they completely destroy the female's nose, where it gets infected and swells to the point where the female can't eat and just starves to death. Or the male gets too excited and accidentally waterboards his partner in the process, which is only a tragedy to one of them, since males reportedly can't tell the difference between an active breathing participant and a soul-evicted carcass, because they treat them exactly the same. Now, you'd expect an animal that dates like this to have more males than females. Problem is that sometimes there's an aggressive testosterone incel weasel without a mate. In some of these lower female areas, these down bad water wolverines will settle for anything roughly the same size, which can lead the male sea otters breaking the seal with no approval, and sometimes even guarding the life-retired body for up to a week. Now, it doesn't happen that often, it's pretty rare, and only in those places with a severe gender imbalance. But what was your other favorite animal?
And seals.
Oh, well, some fur seals in Antarctica have the same problem, where a lack of female causes a hormonal hot dog without abundance taken in to resort to. Yeah, there have been multiple recorded instances of fur seals forcing themselves on king penguins. In one case, a seal assault lasted 14 hours until it eventually gave up and just ate the bird. And now you know why penguins waddle. Say something else. I want you to.
This mom helped her
She
son
will expose
cover
them
up his
all.
girlfriend's murder. Emily Peguero was born on July 12, 2001 in the Dominican Republic. She had 2 older siblings, a brother and a sister, so she was the baby of the family. Everyone describes her as being absolutely beautiful, very kind and loving, and just extremely bright. Her parents were very hardworking people. They didn't come from a lot of money, but they did their best to provide a good life for Emily and her siblings. When Emily was a little girl, she would often play with a neighbor that lived across the street, and his name is Marlon Martinez. So even though they were neighbors and lived right next to each other, they came from very different families. Marlon's mother, Marlene, was very well known around the community. She worked in politics, so she had a lot of connections. They lived in this very big house that was guarded by a large gate, while Emily lived in a more humble, tiny home. Emily and Madelon grew up very close to each other, and when Emily was 15 years old and Madelon was 18 years old, they began to date. So yes, she was a minor. They dated for a few months, and when Emily was 16 years old and Madelon was now 19 years old, they found out that Emily was pregnant. Of course, Emily's family was very scared and very nervous because the baby of the family was now going to have her own baby. It was definitely a scary situation, but they were supportive of Emily. As for Madelon's family, his mom was not happy about this. She was very upset about the fact that her son got a poor girl pregnant, and she was really worried about the family's reputation. She honestly didn't even care that Emily was 16 and was so young and going through this really big life-changing moment. She cared more about how this was going to affect her son's future and how this was going to affect him going to college. Despite his mom's opinion, Madelon told Emily and her dad that he was going to step up, take responsibility for this, and take care of Emily and the baby. Fast forward to August 23rd, 2017, Emily is now 5 months pregnant and she's expecting a baby boy. That day, Emily had plans to go to the clinic with Madelon to go pick up some lab results, and then she said that she would be back later that day. So Madelon picked her up at around 8:30 in the morning, and the two of them headed off to the clinic. At around 11:25 in the morning, Emily texted her older sister saying that Madelon was actually going to drop her off at a gas station because she had plans to go meet up with their uncle. Now, as soon as Emily's sister and their mom saw this message, they were immediately concerned. First of all, Emily always sends voice messages, so the fact that she texted this time was extremely odd. Second of all, they were thinking, what uncle? Like, what uncle is Emily meeting with, and why don't we know about this meetup? Why would the uncle ask Emily to meet him at the gas station? Like, none of this made any sense. Now again, since the families are neighbors, they can literally see Madelon arriving home completely alone across the street. So Emily's sister decides to go across the street to ask Madelon, where is my sister? Where did you leave her? And that's when Madelon explains that as they were driving to the clinic, Emily realized that she got the dates confused and that her results weren't going to be ready that day, but instead be ready Friday. So she asked Madelon to take her home, and as they were driving, she said, actually, can you drop me off at the gas station? My uncle is going to pick me up there. So that's exactly what he did, and that was the last time that he saw or spoke to her. Again, Emily's family was extremely suspicious of this, so they decided to go to the gas station and ask the employees for the surveillance footage. And when they got to the gas station and looked at the footage, they were shocked by what they saw. Well, actually, they were shocked by what they didn't see. Okay, go to part 2.
She was paragliding when suddenly a storm comes out of nowhere, pulls her into the heart of it, and then propels her up 33,000 feet in the sky, which is higher than Mount Everest and the same cruising altitude as planes. At this height, temperatures plummet to negative 58 degrees and oxygen levels are dangerously low, creating a fatal environment. On the way up, she's hit with hail the size of golf balls before she ultimately loses consciousness. And then, despite being unconscious for over 40 minutes, she wakes up. Her paraglider remains stable due to the strong upward currents preventing a fatal spiral. Thankfully, the storm's downdrafts eventually brought her back to a lower and safer altitude. And then once she woke up, even though she was disoriented and barely able to move, she managed to regain control of her paraglider and land safely. In the end, she suffered frostbite bruises and shock, but she was still alive, and that's remarkable. Another professional who experienced the same thing wasn't so lucky. If you're a fan of my content, please do me a favor and subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is linked in my bio before this app gets banned.
How did she do that? Not lucky that has to be for you to happen.
So I just recently came out with a brand new...
The mother gracious God.
Less than 2 hours after that video was filmed, the girl on stage in that video would be dead. Her name was Christina Grimmie. She was a famous singer here in America, and she was murdered in 2016. So Christina had been making music and performing all of her life, but her real rise to fame started when she was on the show The Voice. After Christina was on The Voice, the world kind of opened up for her. She made her major label debut, she started going on tours all across the world, and she was a rising star. Sadly, though, she attracted the attention of a very disturbed individual who can actually be seen here in footage from her final show, creepily watching Christina perform from the crowd, knowing what he was about to do. That man was 27-year-old Kevin James Loibel. So Christina's performance that evening ended at about 10 p.m. And afterwards, she moved over to a little booth to sign autographs for people who had come to the show. At around 10:24 p.m., Kevin approached Christina. Christina, thinking he was just like every other fan there, opened her arms up to give him a big hug. But that's when Kevin retrieved a Glock pistol from his person and shot her 3 times at point-blank range. After the shots rang out, Christina's brother tackled Kevin to the ground. Yes, sadly, Christina's brother was there working the booth with her that evening. But after a fight, Kevin managed to get himself free. He retrieved his Glock and he took his own life right next to Christina's body. Sadly, Christina had been shot twice in the chest and once in the head. And by 10:59 p.m., not even a full hour after she finished her performance, Christina Grimmie was pronounced dead. Afterwards, Kevin's family left this note for the media. This was all they had to say after the tragedy. But fans, even to this day, remember Christina as an amazing singer and talk about the potential that she had if she hadn't been taken from this world so quickly. If you want to listen to more true crime stories, check out the podcast Murder in America that I co-host with my wife, Courtney. You can listen to it on any streaming platform.
Be here 1 minute, go on the next, man. She was a great person. Just trying to be nice, trying to show some love to her fans, and look what happened. Now, you know, wow, these, I guess, big people, famous people, why they always be having security around.
This is part 2 of what went on during the Habersham County press conference on Debbie Collier this morning. I highly suggest you go to the other video that I just made so that you can hear all the other details as well. So, the most crazy information that they did give during this press conference was that Amanda did speak to Debbie on the phone that afternoon. So he does not have the exact time on it. But whenever somebody asked if Amanda would give any indication on why she was going to the Family Dollar store, the police officer said that Amanda said that Debbie was going to the Family Dollar to buy supplies to clean Amanda's house. This raises so many questions for me because, I mean, first, why would you drive 90 minutes north to go to a Family Dollar to buy cleaning supplies when there's all these stops along the way and near her house to be able to get the same supplies? And the weirdest thing, none of that supplies is used to clean a house. I mean, paper towels, yeah, sure, but a torch, a poncho, a tarp, what would that be used for to clean a house? And coincidentally, all that supplies was found at the murder scene. They also confirmed that Amanda was living in Maryland with her brother, and she moved back down on the 8th of September. And remember, Steve lets Amanda live in the rental house off and on, basically whenever Amanda needs somewhere to stay. It was also confirmed that Steve was working from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. parking vehicles for the football game that was going on, and they have all of it on CCTV, so it's very unlikely that he's involved. So Amanda spoke to Debbie that afternoon. She got the Venmo transaction at 3:17, and then she waited a whole 3 hours to contact the police and file a missing persons report. And we don't know if Amanda tried to call her mom or anything between the Venmo transaction and when the police report was filed. That was pretty much the extent of the information that they gave. The detective did mention that this is not a sprint and that they're going to take their time on this to be able to get all the information correct, which honestly I respect. Like, get all the information and then do what you need to do. Especially so whenever someone's found, court is smooth and there's no question or anything, to not be able to give this person the maximum punishment. One more thing is that they did mention that the autopsy is not completed yet. They have not received the report, and that the medical examiners gave them a 6-week time frame, likely because they're waiting on that toxicology report to come back. Okay. So let me know what you guys are thinking. They did say that they will do another press conference as soon as they get the autopsy report back, and hopefully by then they have more information. I think it's interesting that no one has been ruled out yet. And I will be super interested to see the timeline that they come up with whenever they get all the access to the phones. It's not really looking good, though, for Miss Bearden.
But then they're taking their time with that case. Imagine seeing that when you wake up. Speaking gibberish? I'm trying to say a ritual or something?
by events that happened in a Bulgarian mental facility called La La Land. Children there were isolated from the others and placed in dark rooms. But apparently 4 of those children died on the same day, inspiring the Teletubbies. Lala apparently had facial disfigurement and was isolated for 5 years, and that inspired the Teletubby Lala. Twite was a deaf, facially disfigured kid who was tied to a fence outside and had gotten frostbitten from the cold. This inspired Tinky Winky. Donka, who was starved and was very, very sick, would lay in his own vomit for days, inspired Dipsy. And finally, Paulina, who had fell into a fire and was roasted alive, inspired Poe. But you won't believe the reason they were called the Teletubbies. You see, the children's main source of entertainment in their rooms were their TVs. They were as small as a small iPad. Sometimes when they heard their toys was going to be confiscated, they would hide them in their mouths. And they had just found out that the institution was going to get rid of the TVs. And they didn't want that, and they couldn't hide the TVs in their mouths. So one of them had the great idea to hide them in their stomachs, because that's the only place that they could fit. Mind you, these kids are a little bit not all the way there. So they came up with a plan to rip their insides out in order to fit the TVs inside and hide them. They tried it, and the next morning, the caregiver walked in on all 4 children, dead.
Imagine going to a family Christmas dinner and almost everyone dies from poisoning. This woman tried to kill her husband's entire family by giving them a cake she baked that was laced with arsenic. 3 family members passed away, 3 others were hospitalized, and this woman who poisoned everyone ended up taking her own life in jail. This all happened on December 23rd when 42-year-old D.S. Mora baked a cake and invited her husband's entire family over. That evening, they began cutting the cake that they would normally eat on Christmas Eve, and almost everyone complained about the taste and that it tasted a little weird. But they still ate a significant amount of cake, and almost everyone felt sick right away, and 3 people died right then and there. Investigators tested all the ingredients in the house and found that the flour used in the cake was laced with arsenic. But what's absolutely crazy is that a couple of months earlier, D.S.'s father-in-law also suddenly died, and they exhumed his body and found high levels of poison. So they think that she also took his life. Now, you guys are probably wondering, well, what was the motive? Why did she do this? At first, the family didn't understand what caused her to commit this crime, but then they thought about it and they remembered a disagreement they had 20 years ago. 20 years ago, and they believe that she might have not got over this disagreement, and that's why she tried to unalive everyone. But things don't even end there, because while D.S. sat in prison, her husband told her that he wanted a divorce, and a day later, she took her own life. This picture
Man, people hold grudges for 20 years. That's a very dangerous person. Beware of what you put in your system.
Famously surfaced from 1941 because something looks very off about it. This guy, a lot of people cite this picture as proof of time travel because not only does he seemingly look very modern and out of place, but he also appears to be holding a camera that's very small, too small for any commercial grade camera of 1941. But let me explain why this is debunked. The modern t-shirt he's wearing, it's a logo for the Montreal Maroons, which was a hockey team from the 40s. The glasses were also available. They had protective side shields in the 40s too. But what about that camera? It's small enough to be a digital camera, but they did not have commercial grade cameras that were this small in the 40s. Incorrect. Kodak confirmed of a rare model of a small portable camera that was limited, but it was available by 1941, which makes this photo completely plausible.
Damn, so no time travel. You gotta take that off the list.
Humans never meant to know. This is a 1954 photo of 2 4-year-old Australian boys playing in a sandbox full of asbestos. This was during a time when very little was known about the devastating effects of asbestos on humans, as both boys eventually died from mesothelioma before the age of 40. In France, you can legally marry a dead person, as long as you can prove that they planned on marrying you before they died. These were the clothing and acts of Rome's most famous executioner, Mastratida. He carried out a total of 516 executions over his 68-year career. Richard Klinkhammer's wife mysteriously disappeared in 1991. The next year, he wrote a book on 7 ways to kill your spouse. A few years later, the new owners of his former home found his wife's skeletal remains. He was sentenced to 7 years in prison, but was released 5 years early due to good behavior. A British Marine had a leg tattoo of Liverpool's motto, "You'll never walk alone." But after a major injury in Afghanistan, his leg was amputated and the surgeon had to cut the tattoo. So it now read, "You'll never walk."
Oh man. Fate can be a scary thing.
Facts that will mess with your perception of time. Anne Frank and Martin Luther King would be the same age if they were alive today. Queen Elizabeth and Marilyn Monroe were both the same age as well. Here they are when they were both 30 years old meeting each other. George Washington died 25 years before the first dinosaur fossil was found. George Washington did not know about the existence of dinosaurs. Woolly mammoths were still walking around the earth 1,000 years after the pyramids were built. Also, Cleopatra was alive closer in time to the moon landings than the building of the Great Pyramid. NASA was already exploring space by the time scientists could agree on how plate tectonics worked. Follow for more.
Wow, really? We were that advanced back then?
World's most unsolved mystery. This picture contains mysteries from the most well-known to the darkest. Some of these mysteries have never been solved and never will. Okay, so tier 3. Today we're going to be talking about the black-eyed children. Black-eyed children are supposedly the devil's children. These children have pale skin with solid black eyes. The ages range from 6 years old all the way up to 16. The story I'm about to tell will literally leave chills on your body. Okay, so sightings of these children have been recorded all the way back to the 1990s. During the 1990s, internet wasn't as popular as it is now, which is a very important detail because fake news couldn't spread that fast like it could now. A woman was sleeping in her bed when her dog started to growl. The dog was growling in the middle of the night around 2 a.m., so the woman woke up and peeked out of her window to see what the dog was growling at. The lady peeks through her blinds and sees a woman just staring at her front door. The lady then cracked the door open to see if maybe this woman needed help. The woman just stared at her and said, "Can I come inside?" The lady said she refused the offer and said no, and the lady's eyes turned solid black. Thousands of people from all different countries reported the same kind of sightings. Ironically, all of the reports are about people refusing to help these black-eyed children. So the real question is, what happened to the people who let the children in? So what do you think? Do you think all of these thousands of people are lying, or do you think there's something much darker inside? Make sure to like and follow because tier 4 is tomorrow.
Could be capping, man.
This is a zombified snail. Its mind is currently being hijacked by a parasitic worm that invades a snail's eye stalks where it pulsates to imitate a caterpillar. The parasite then mind controls its host out into the open for a hungry bird to pluck out its eyes. The parasite has basically done all of this because it wants to breed in a bird's guts, so somehow it's come up with this plan.
What the heck? Parasites are terrifying.
This sea otter swam up to a fisherman because she wanted to show him her favorite rock, and she even trusted him to look after it for a bit. Sea otters have built-in pockets under their arms where they store their favorite rocks and any snacks that they find that they might want to save for later. They take their rocks very seriously because they use them as tools to open their food, and when they find one that they really love, they'll keep it for as long as possible. So being trusted with a sea otter's rock, one of their most prized possessions, is truly an honor. In this case, she seemed to just want the fisherman to admire it while she twirled around for a little bit, and then she very politely reclaimed her property. Sea otters are protected, so it is illegal to touch them no matter how much it looks like they want to play with you. But they do put on quite a show even from a distance. In their downtime, they spend time practicing juggling with their rock collections. When they sleep, they hold hands to keep from floating away from each other, and they even wrap themselves in kelp like a blanket to stay anchored while they nap. A group of resting sea otters is very appropriately called a raft. I'm Jen, and I post something positive every day.
This is a perfect example of one of those things that you should just never do, because what we're looking at here is the deadly blue dragon sea slug, and while they're only about an inch long, they're immune to a ton of venoms that can easily unalive humans. And not only are they immune to it, but their favorite food is extremely venomous creatures, such as the Portuguese man-o-war. And just for reference, a sting from the Portuguese man-o-war is enough to send you on the fast lane to the ER or 6 feet underground. But after the blue dragon finishes feasting on the man-o-war, it actually recycles and concentrates the venom that it just consumed, then uses that reconcentrated venom as a defense mechanism to dish out a more powerful sting than the man-o-war that it just ate. Also, the blue dragons float around upside down, with their blue stomach facing up to camouflage in with the surface of the water. So this is the one time where floating belly up doesn't mean dead, but means armed and dangerous. And as if God didn't already make them OP enough, they're also hermaphrodites, which means that they have both female and male reproductive organs. Moral of the story here is that if you see an animal that's bright and colorful, God did that as a warning sign to let you know that they're extremely dangerous and you probably shouldn't touch them.
Facts. I don't know why that person was touching it like it was a cute little pet. He was playing with his life there. You know what that is.
Facts that I wish I didn't know. When you die, the last thing to go is your hearing. So as all your other mortal sensations are leaving this world, the last thing you're ever going to experience are the sounds going on around you, which very well could be like your family members crying or cheering. By the year 2050, there's going to be more plastic in the ocean than fish. When pigs get a cold, like a cough, very often they will shoot their intestines out of their anus, and farmers have to, like, stuff it back in.
What the hell? How do pigs do that and survive?
Rare animals that are too cute to go unnoticed. Did some research recently. Found some ones that I haven't heard of before, and now we're going to talk about them because I can't stop thinking about them. This one I can't pronounce, but I'm going to say Jaguarundi. Jagarundi. It's a little jaguar. Look at it. Look how goofy it looks. Oh my god. It looks like a house cat that was assembled incorrectly. Like its neck goes too far. It's got too much neck. But I love it because of that. And it's been pictured several times looking like a big old dum-dum, like an idiot, like its face just looks stupid. And I really appreciate that. So we're going to give it 5 stars out of 5 stars. This next one is probably one of the cutest things I've ever seen, and it's the Siberian flying squirrel. Breathe it in, take it in. Are you alive? I almost died when I saw this thing. Oh, but Tucker, you talked about the Japanese dwarf flying squirrel. What's the difference? The difference is this thing is smaller. It's smaller than the dwarf squirrel, which logistically, like in terms of language, that doesn't make sense, but I don't care. I'm in love with this thing. It gives me powerful, cute aggression. Like I want to put it in my hand and like huck it at a wall because I love it, not because I hate it. But I would never do that, but just the weight probably is perfect for it. The sloth bear. I just feel bad for this guy, but in like a cute way. But oh, buddy, why are you looking like that? It's just a little too stretched out. Its limbs are lanky, which in my mind makes me think it could give a really good hug. It also probably could kill me pretty effectively, but I'm going to stick on the hug thing. And once again, it's just a goofy little guy. It's just being a goofball all the time. In every picture I see of it, it's being goofy, so that's a pass for me. That's a cute-ass animal. And last but not least, and I think my tastes have changed in animals because I recently got a cat, but the ring-tailed cat. Look at its face. Anything with eyes that are way too big, it just has my heart immediately. And this thing is no exception. Plus, it's got that big old poofy tail. Is that not fantastic? What more do you want? Don't be an asshole. Love him.
I thought that was a lemur. Ain't gonna lie to you.
Facts that will mess with your perception of time. Anne Frank and Martin Luther King would be the same age if they were alive today. Queen Elizabeth and Marilyn Monroe were both the same age as well. Here they are when they were both 30 years old meeting each other. George Washington died 25 years before the first dinosaur fossil was found. George Washington did not know about the existence of dinosaurs. Woolly mammoths were still walking around the earth 1,000 years after the pyramids were built. Also, Cleopatra was alive closer in time to the moon landings than the building of the Great Pyramid. NASA was already exploring space by the time scientists could agree on how plate tectonics worked. Follow for more.
That's interesting. Especially about the Cleopatra
Facts that I wish I didn't know. When you die, the last thing to go is your hearing. So as all your other mortal sensations are leaving this world, the last thing you're ever going to experience are the sounds going on around you, which very well could be like your family members crying or cheering. By the year 2050, there's going to be more plastic in the ocean than fish. When pigs get a cold, like a cough, very often they will shoot their intestines out of their anus, and farmers have to, like, stuff it back in.
That's a fact I did not need to know about pigs. Blows my mind every time.
Shocking incident you don't know about. In 1978, legendary actor Charlie Chaplin's body was stolen from his grave and held for ransom. But his widow refused to pay the ransom demands of $400,000 because she said Charlie would have thought it to be ridiculous. His body was found in a cornfield 2 weeks later, and the 2 suspects were arrested. The Oxford English Dictionary was mostly written by William Chester Minor, a schizophrenic murderer who cut off his own pecker and spent most of his life in a mental asylum. Disney's first water park, River Country, closed in 2001. After an 11-year-old boy died from a brain-eating parasite he got in the lake. The park still lies completely abandoned to this day.
A girl who grew up in a concentration camp drew this when she was asked to draw a picture of home in 1948. Frank Goldsmith was a Titanic survivor who later lived near Tiger Stadium in Detroit. But he never took his children to a ball game, because the roar of the crowd reminded him of the screams of people dying in the freezing waters.
You should not eat salad right now, and this is why. The FDA has just announced that fresh express packaged salads have been linked to a listeria outbreak. The disease outbreak has already caused one person to pass away, but it doesn't stop there. The outbreak is affecting 8 major US states, which are Illinois, Massachusetts, Michigan, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Virginia. Make sure you hit the plus to stay updated.
Bro, it always starts with the food, man. We gotta watch what we put into our system. Watching these clips together with you guys, man. I've changed my eating habits, or like planning to, but be careful what you put into your system. Best piece of advice I can give you guys. All them wash up on the beach? What's going on?
The first large mass stranding of these animals in around 50 years. To try and refloat the animals directly back into that surf would be challenging, and then of course that would also present some enormous safety risks for our staff and personnel.
Do you guys remember last year when this Alabama prisoner escaped with the help of jail employee Vicky White, who had a romantic relationship together? 56-year-old Vicky White worked at the Lauderdale County Jail for nearly 2 decades, and her last day on the job was April 29, 2022. But instead of celebrating with her coworkers, she planned the escape of 38-year-old Casey White, who was serving a 75-year prison sentence over multiple charges, including attempted murder from 2015. The two had been in a romantic relationship for 2 years when they planned the escape together, and when that day finally came, they were on the run for 11 days, which resulted in a manhunt across 3 states. Casey was recaptured in Evansville, Indiana, but leading up to the capture, Vicky died by suicide following a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Last month, Casey pleaded guilty to first-degree escape in exchange for having a felony murder charge involving Vicky's death dropped. He was sentenced to life in prison without parole. At the court hearing, Casey stated, quote, "I loved Vicky. I wouldn't drag her name through the mud for anyone in this courtroom. Vicky took me out because she said right was right, wrong is wrong. She was the first person who gave me a hug in 6 years. We just wanted a new life together. I chose this road and it cost me my life and freedom." End quote. He apologized to Vicky's family and said that her only regret was leaving them behind. At the court hearing, Casey also said that Vicky helped him escape because she thought it was unfair that he was still in jail when others have been accused of worse crimes and have been let out. But his charges from 2015 included home invasion, 2 carjackings, multiple shootings which left a dog dead and a woman injured, and he also tried to kill his then-girlfriend and hold her roommates hostage. Casey is also still facing a capital murder trial for the murder of Connie Ridgway, who was found stabbed to death on her living room floor on October 23, 2015. Police in Rogersville, Alabama investigated her murder, but her case would go cold for 5 years until Casey White, who was already in jail, confessed to her murder. He has since recanted his confession and pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity, but he knew details about the murder that were never publicized. That trial is set to begin on August 14th.
So there's this
He was a menace.
It's going viral and it's showing some pretty morbid data. Now, the thing that gives this credibility is that this is connected to a special interest project coming out of the FBI where they think there could be upwards of 850 victims of homicide connected to a ring of serial killers who are truck drivers. There are all these stats that they're citing talking about 44% of truck drivers are reporting that they are clinically depressed. And you gotta think about it, these are transient people who travel some of the most desolate roads in America, and it is very, very hard to track a transient serial killer. They have almost no connection to any of the places where they hypothetically kill, so local jurisdiction can't really pinpoint who they are.
So beware of truck drivers. We've seen clips of what happens when they break mentally.
What's the scariest urban legend from your state? Today we're doing Kentucky. This is the Waverly Hills Sanatorium. It was created in 1883 by Major Thomas H. Hayes. He built it as a personal home, but it was far away from any schools, so he just started a school right there for his child to go to school. It was the teacher that he hired that really enjoyed the Waverly novels, and that's how it's got its name, Waverly Hills. In the early 1900s, the White Death, or the outbreak of tuberculosis, hit Kentucky really hard. Which there is currently an outbreak of tuberculosis in Kansas, and that's scary and a whole different story. But there is no known cure for tuberculosis, and doctors were trying to find a cure, but this would often come with barbaric experiments, I guess. But Waverly Hills kept its name even when it became a sanatorium for tuberculosis patients. But many patients came to Waverly Hills, and there they were doing experiments to try to find a cure for tuberculosis, and some of these would be really barbaric. Fresh air was often considered to be a cure for tuberculosis, so you would see these pictures of patients being outside, some of them even covered in snow. That sounds like absolute torture to me because I hate snow, but these aren't the worst things. Like, they would do surgeries to take out ribs and muscles around the ribs to allow the lungs more air to inhale oxygen. They would also insert balloons to the lungs to help them fill up with air. It was just super barbaric, and a lot of people did not survive these surgeries.
Who would?
Doctors also thought that mental health was a huge part in getting better from tuberculosis. So when someone would die, they would secretly take them to this rail car that would take the bodies directly to the highway to be disposed of. It's not known exactly how many people passed away from not only just the disease tuberculosis, but also from these experimental things they were doing. Waverly Hills has gone through a lot and has even been a minimum security prison at one point, but now many people think that this place is extremely haunted, if not one of the most haunted places in the United States. Allegedly, it is haunted by a nurse who took her own life probably because of some of the things that she saw at the Waverly Sanatorium, but also a little boy named Tim. I read more stories about Tim, but apparently he's a little child who likes to play with balls. He'll scoot them across the floor and throw them around. But people also hear disembodied voices, doors opening and closing, slamming on their own. And people often see white figures just kind of floating around. Here is one picture. I kind of can see something there, but then at the same time I'm it's probably just a trick of the light. But what are your thoughts on this? Do you think it's one of the most haunted places in the United States? Let me know down in the comments and follow for more creepy things.
Sounds like it.
Have you ever had a nightmare that came true? For a year before she went missing, Cindy Anderson would have nightmares of a man who knocked on her door, and when she went to answer it, he would abduct her, torment her, and then take her life. Cindy would share these fears and these scary dreams with her mother, but this was all kind of blown off. Cynthia Anderson was only 20 years old when she went missing. She was lovingly known by Cindy by her friends and family. She was born and raised in a very conservative Christian environment. Cindy was known to not only be beautiful, but she was also quiet and very obedient. She was dating a boy at the time, and it seemed like the relationship was going very well, and they were taking it very seriously as they planned on attending Bible college together. Cindy was looking forward to quitting her job and starting this new chapter in her life. At the time of her disappearance, she was looking for a lawyer's office in a strip mall in Toledo, Ohio. There was no indication that she had plans to run away or disappear from society. 10 months before she went missing, a message appeared on the wall that was outside of her office window. This message said, "I love you, Cindy, by GW." This was incredibly unsettling for Cindy, as she didn't know a GW and she didn't know who wrote this message. It would take a solid 6 months for this message to be cleaned up from the wall, but within a couple of weeks the message reappeared, but this time it was larger. It appeared as if this message was directed specifically for her because she got a full view of it from her office window. Shortly after this message appeared, Cindy started getting phone calls at her office that made her really unsettled. Even the people she worked with in this office were unsettled by this and were really concerned for her safety. They asked Cindy to have her doors locked at all times, even during the working hours, and they even installed an emergency buzzer on her desk, just in case there was an emergency. That way she could press it in alerts surrounding businesses. The day before Cindy disappeared, she was working with a client in her office, and the client remembers her receiving a phone call that left her with a look of horror on her face. She quickly hung up, but the caller called back, and Cindy once again picked up and hung up. The client asked her if she was okay, and she said that she was fine and just receiving these phone calls that made her a little bit unsettled. The client said that the look on her face was as if someone had scared the hell out of her. We'll get into more in part 2. Remember to like and follow along. If you like this kind of stuff, it helps my algorithm and it helps yours. But if you're interested in...
Fun fact, Australia started off as a penal colony. Like they sent prisoners down there, and they also sent misbehaving rabbits down under, and they eventually became kangaroos. And my only source that made it for real though, y'all don't listen to me. I've been saying kangaroos are just felony convict buddies sentenced to life in Australia. You know what's hilarious? Those are great kangaroos. They're not the biggest ones. Red kangaroos are the max security prison deer of down under. R.I.P. Roger, but he was a 6'7", 200-pound kickboxing marsupial that crushed metal as a hobby. It's one of those animals childhood gaslit you about. It's a hop-happy homicide case that can fold you in several ways. Let's count them. They got claws for grappling. Good luck getting out of them. That toenail sharp enough to slice your stomach open. And the worst part is that tail, because they can stand on it and kick you full force, have your soul asking for divorce. Not to mention, if you follow them into water, they have the tools, knowledge, and intent to drown you. And I have a theory why this kickboxing crash out's like this. See, back in the day, they had to deal with nonsense like a marsupial lion. Basically an over 200-pound predatory wombat on steroids with the strongest bite force of any mammal pound for pound. And Megalania, a Komodo dragon times 3. 23 feet worth of F around and flatline, ain't no finding out. I really think surviving all that gave kangaroos the most irrational confidence on Earth. Now you can't tell them nothing. A whole bicep curl encrypted. Fun fact, they show submission by coughing, so if one ever presses you, you have a choice. You can have a coughing fit or fit a coffin.
This 12-year-old child bride is shown kissing her brand new 32-year-old husband in this photo. And the story behind this picture is disturbing. So this is 32-year-old Homer Peel from Tennessee and his 12-year-old bride, Geneva. They got married somehow in the 1930s in Tennessee, but not without controversy. You see, locals in the area protested this marriage, and they were constantly making their thoughts known. I mean, obviously, this is a 12-year-old girl getting married to a 32-year-old man. It blows my mind that disgusting filth like this used to be legal here in America. But unfortunately, that's just history, and it was. So, like I said, in the 1930s, Homer decided to take his child bride down to the courthouse to get married. And get married they did. Now, Geneva's mother didn't know that she was going to the courthouse to get married, and when her mother found out about this, she filed a lawsuit to try to get the marriage annulled, essentially to cancel the marriage. However, the judge said that he wouldn't annul the marriage because, as it turned out, Geneva had been living in a poorhouse with her mother, and the judge decided that her life was better with her 32-year-old husband than with her mother in the poorhouse. So, he just decided not to annul the marriage and sent the child victim back home with her abuser. I mean, this is absolutely disgusting, disturbing shit, but predators and pedophiles aren't a modern thing. And in some cases like this, it used to be legal. Let me know if you thought this was as shocking as I did.
I will call the cops.
This video has been making its way around the internet lately, and the story behind it is so morbid. If you have not been following along, allow me to catch you up. So the woman here in the baseball cap, her name is Katrina McLean, and she's got kind of a dark hobby. No, it's not what you think. She likes to make creepy dolls. Like these kind of dolls. She says she likes to make creations that shock the mind and the soul. So that's not a big deal. I mean, I'm into all kinds of creepy things, so you know, you do you. What did she do that people are all up in arms about?
Yeah.
Well, apparently there is a special ingredient to these creepy dolls that Katrina constructs, and the secret ingredient is people. Desecrated remains, to be exact. Allegedly. Katrina, along with 6 other people, are alleged to be a part of a very sordid and illegal operation that steals human remains that were donated to a medical school. Harvard Medical School, actually. And she's alleged to have a skull and some human skin in some of her dolls. The morgue manager was running this black market operation to sell parts before they were cremated and returned to the family. And the story is still continuing to unfold.
A mysterious illness.
The things people do for money, man. Messing with somebody's remains just to make a quick buck. Why do people always have to do the heinous things, man, for money? It truly blows my mind every single time I watch these clips together with you guys, Seekers.
Has emerged in Uganda that causes uncontrollable body tremors. Since its first reported case in early 2023, Dinga Dinga, which roughly translates to shaking like dancing, has puzzled health officials, and the exact cause remains undetermined.
Start dancing
It
out
primarily seems to be affecting women and girls. Roughly 300 cases have been documented, all of which are confined to Uganda's Bundibugyo district, and the symptoms include uncontrollable shaking, fever and fatigue, and mobility issues due to the severity of the shaking. Fortunately, no fatalities have occurred, and the illness appears to be treatable with antibiotics, leading to a recovery within a week. There has, however, been a lot of comparisons to the dancing plagues of 1518 in France. During that well-documented historical event, people started dancing uncontrollably for days, sometimes leading to exhaustion-related deaths. And while experts have never fully confirmed the cause of the dancing plague, there are a number of key differences to Dinga Dinga, leading them to believe that, don't worry, they're not the same thing.
Okay, so those are completely two separate things, man. Dancing until you check out.
This woman was buried alive by her husband. This happened in Washington when 42-year-old young Ann called police using her Apple Watch after her husband beat her and duct taped her mouth. During the 911 call, Young is heard screaming before her husband broke her Apple Watch, threw her in his van, and drove off. Video surveillance captured Che Ann driving out of the garage at the same time that police arrived to the home. Che Ann took his wife to a wooded area, stabbed her in the chest, and buried her alive in a shallow grave. She had a very hard time breathing when she was in there, but she was able to finally get out several hours later and ran to the nearest home and asked for help. It was said that their fight started because they were talking about divorce and finances. Che Ann was charged with attempted first-degree murder, domestic violence, and kidnapping.
Here are some signs that you or a friend could possibly be a serial killer. And this is like a real problem. So like apparently in our lifetimes, we're going to walk past 16 murderers. And apparently if you live in the city, that almost triples. Make sure to stay till the end too, because I'm going to tell you which zodiac sign is #1 in serial killing. The first one is typically a serial killer is very, very antisocial. They don't like being the center of attention because if you're the center of attention, you have more eyes on you, which means that you can't really do your murders. The second one is a lot of them are obsessed with fire. That's because when somebody lights something on fire, they have complete control of what this flame is doing. The third one is their IQ level. Some of the most famous serial killers that we know in history are some of the smartest people ever. Even your disorganized serial killers are typically above normal intelligence. And the #1 zodiac sign for serial killers is a Pisces. Being a Pisces says you have a very, very big heart, but you also know how to manipulate it. Apparently, if you guys go through something traumatic, you can handle a lot of the pain, but you dish out 100 times more than you got.
You ever go to an NBA game, you can't help but think, this is your life. How do you miss shots ever? Same thing here, like respectfully, I don't know. I guess I just expected a walking sand ship to be better than this. Act like you've been here before. Well, actually, funny thing about that. Tell camels to go back to where they came from, and after they spit on your entire lineage, they'll start showing up in America. Yeah, camels originated in North America. The OG hump jockey's more native to Texas than the Sahara. There's even a story about a demonic man-eating camel terrorizing 1800s Arizona, but that's for another video. Yeah, the first camels were seasoned by snow from the Arctic, not sand. Something else you might not know, the last track of Lion King actually used to run through Eurasia during the Ice Age, which means they have a whole winter coat at the ready if it ever gets cold enough. You ever seen a fluffy hyena? Just know, when you're being mean to the hyenas, you're hating on him too. Their biggest ops have a winter fit too, although to be fair, these are Asian lions. I don't know what it is. There's just something really cozy about this picture. Okay, last one. Cheetahs are fast. Did you know that? Well, there used to be an American cheetah, and they're long gone, but the evidence is still there if you look close enough. This is a pronghorn. They're like the forgotten little brother of giraffes, and yes, they're related. They're also the second fastest mammals alive, because the cats might have stopped chasing them, but the prongs are still running. The more you know. Ain't gonna lie, this video was just an excuse to show the fluffy hyena, and I'm not about to apologize for it.
Fluffy
My biggest fear was having an ugly baby. Now look what the fuck I got. Look at him. He is so funny looking.
How dare you say something like this about your own child? To all the moms watching this, do you think this is normal? Now, I'm not married, I don't have kids, but this is messed up. You've been carrying this child for 9 months. This child is your own skin, and you go and call him ugly publicly online. To me, miss, your child looks adorable. There are women out there that gave birth to babies missing arms and legs, and they were never treated differently than other kids. These kids eventually grow up winning golden medals in Special Olympics. But the thing is, there's nothing wrong with your child, miss. What a shame. What a shame.
Truly, man.
This is why you should always keep pictures of your parents. A little girl named Olivia who lived a very quiet life decided to check her homework assignments that were posted online. The teacher posted that they needed to write down their favorite memory with their family as well as bring a photograph. Olivia then writes about how her and her mom play dolls every night in the basement before bed and that she has a lot of fun doing so. She finishes her paragraph and then looks in her dad's drawer for a photograph of mom. She only found pictures of her mom from high school but decided to use it anyway. Olivia goes to bed and wakes up the next morning. Once she arrives at school, the teacher then says, let's start presenting our project. Then the teacher called Olivia's name to present. Olivia then begins to read about how her and her mom play dolls every night and then pulls out the photograph. As soon as Olivia pulled out the photograph, her teacher's face goes numb. She then asked Olivia if she can take a closer look at the photograph. She then recognized her mom as one of her previous students. Then the teacher asks, where did you get this photo? Olivia says my dad keeps them in his drawer. The teacher, shocked, sits down Olivia and pulls out an old newspaper. The newspaper headline, local high school teen murdered, boyfriend gone missing. The teacher then looks at Olivia and says, your mom has been dead for 14 years.
This is the creepy story of 23-year-old Fan Man Lee and how her head was found in a Hello Kitty doll. Fan Man Lee struggled with addiction for a very long time, and in 1997 she met 34-year-old Chan Man Lok, who was a drug dealer and a pimp. That year, Fan Man Lee became desperate for money and drugs, so she stole $4,000 from Chan Man Lok. When he noticed that the money was missing, he asked his two friends to kidnap Fan Man Yi. Originally, his plan was to force Fan Man Yi into prostitution so she can pay him back, but his plan got out of hand and he did something much worse. Chan Man Lok, his friends, and his girlfriend began torturing Fan Man Yi. They tied her up and beat her, burned her, sexually assaulted her, and forced her to eat human feces. Eventually, Fan Man Yi passed away, so they cut her body into pieces, boiled it, and then fed some of the remaining pieces to the dogs. This is where things get super creepy. The three men decided to stuff Fan Man Yi's head into a Hello Kitty doll. And get this, the crime was eventually reported by Chan Man Lok's girlfriend. She basically told on herself because she claimed to be haunted by the ghost of a dead woman. She said that this ghost would not stop tormenting her until she confessed to the murder. It's been said that the building where Fan Man Yi passed away has been haunted for a very long time. People claim to see the figure of a woman walking in the hallways and also claim to hear the cries of a woman.
Haunted? They said the building was demolished, so there was truth to that story, validity to it, man.
These are the craziest discoveries we made in 2024. Starting in England, where amateur archaeologists unearthed one of the largest Roman dodecahedrons ever found. Till this day, though, what they were used for still remains a mystery. In Iran, they discovered the world's oldest lipstick, dating back 4,000 years. An Italian junk dealer discovered that the old painting he had hung up at his family-owned restaurant was actually an original Picasso, now worth over $6.6 million. In Botswana, the world's second largest diamond ever was unearthed, and we were gifted with this clip. Back to Earth, a scientific expedition in Peru discovered 27 new species, including an amphibious mouse and a blob-headed fish. Scientists discovered an association between low testosterone and high anxiety. Japan discovered the skeleton panda sea squirt, which, for such a random name, is somehow the perfect description. And how could we forget? The evolution of life on Earth and even space was thrown into question after the discovery of dark oxygen on the floor of the Pacific Ocean.
What the f did I just watch? I don't know how I'm going to sleep after watching this documentary. This documentary is about people who die and have no next of kin and how the coroner deals with them. And fair warning, they show everything in this documentary. From the beginning, I was not expecting it, and it literally shows a guy on the toilet. If you love documentaries, make sure to hit follow because I post daily and you'll never miss out on what to watch. This whole film is haunting, unnerving, heartbreaking. The amount of people that just pass away without any loved ones around them are just left for the city to deal with, and they have to try to find somebody to claim them is so heartbreaking. This made me feel like I really need to have children so that this doesn't happen to me. And it's so crazy to see the people who do this as a job. I'm sitting there with my jaw on the floor and these people are just wrapping them up and tossing them down the hallway. I guess you get used to seeing it, but it's just so astonishing. Typically I show the trailer in the background when I make videos, but I can't even play the trailer in this because I would have to censor the whole thing. I'm sure some of you do this as a job, and I would love to hear about it in the comments. Have you guys seen...
I didn't even imagine that, man. Like passing away with no next of kin, and they have to figure out what to do with it. Somebody else deciding what to do with your remains. I can't go through with that, man. That's why you gotta be thankful for your family.
This yet, Ken Urger posted this photo onto his Instagram account about an hour ago, showing that he and Gypsy Rose have had the baby. His caption says, "Welcoming 2025 with the greatest gift of all," with a baby emoji. They've named the baby Aurora Reina Urker, and a lot of people were thinking that the name Aurora came from the Princess Sleeping Beauty. Because, you know, when she was growing up, she was oftentimes dressed as a Disney princess and made frequent trips to Walt Disney World. And she loved Disney princesses. And then other people were thinking they chose that name after Christie's dog, Aurora Grace. But she says here, back whenever Ken and I were together 7 years ago, both of us have a fascination with the northern lights. And the proper term is the Aurora Borealis. I think it was maybe in 2018, we wrote each other's future kid's name on pieces of paper, and Aurora is what we both picked without even knowing each other was picking it. She said they held on to that name and that memory even after she and Urker split and she married Ryan Anderson. When we had broken up, it was like, oh, Aurora is never going to be born. A lot of people think the origin is one thing, but they don't know that little story. So, congratulations to Gypsy Rose and Ken, and let's all hope and pray she doesn't turn out to be her mother.
Who is Vexbolts?
Oh,
Why are people planning to mass unfollow him? Vexbolts is a content creator known for his Fortnite videos, including one that went viral for his Let Him Cook audio. Let him cook! But now many TikTokers are vowing to leave Vexbolts in 2024, joining a trend that asks users to unfollow him today before we ring in the new year. Comment sections have been flooded with calls to unfollow Vexbolts, who has now surpassed 8 million followers, many of whom only followed him to participate in the mass unfollowing. Some claim they're unfollowing the creator because his content is cringeworthy, but others are simply joining in on the trend for fun. So will you be participating?
Well, we're leaving, man. I remember seeing that trend, bro. They said they were gonna leave it for 2024, man. Everybody needs to leave some, bro, in 2024 going into the new
Scary
year.
facts that will give you nightmares, part 2. The chainsaw was originally invented by 2 surgeons from Scotland to help assist in childbirth. A surgical procedure known as tooth in the eye surgery was made popular in the 1960s. Surgeons would put a tooth in a blind person's eye in order to restore their sight. This procedure works and is still being done in some cases today. And lastly, hundreds of people die every year from being strangled by their own bed sheets.
She was killed by her own people. This is what happened to 30-year-old Annie Mae Aquash. Annie Mae was born on March 27, 1945, and was born into the Mikwok First Nation. Annie Mae was a part of the American Indian movement, and she was just extremely passionate about human rights and the preservation of tribal communities. She was a mother of 2, so she was fighting for her children's safety and future. Throughout her time with the American Indian movement, she was arrested on federal weapons-related charges, but she was quickly released. She was arrested for a second time in November of 1975. However, she was released just 10 days later on November 25th. Due to how quickly she was released, some members of the American Indian movement started to believe that maybe she was working as an informant for the FBI, and that's why she was released so quickly. The last time anyone saw Annie Mae was in the middle of December, and then just 2 months later, on February 24th, 1976, a farmer in South Dakota stumbled upon a frozen, badly decomposed body. The farm was located along the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation, and this corpse was wearing blue jeans, a maroon jacket, and they were laying with their knees pushed up all the way to their chest. Police were called to the scene, and a coroner determined that this was a woman and that they had been dead for more than 2 months. Due to the condition of the body, it took a little bit over a week for police to identify this corpse as 30-year-old Annie Mae Aquash. Initially, they believed that she died of exposure, that she froze to death. They buried her, and that was that. When her family and friends heard the news about her death, they were just completely shocked. They were trying to figure out what had happened since the last time she was seen in December to when her body was found in February. I mean, what happened in those 2 months? They just had a gut feeling that something more had happened. They requested a second autopsy. They exhumed her body, and this new autopsy revealed that Annie Mae had a gunshot wound to the back of her head. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't the consequence of exposure. Annie Mae was murdered. Her friends and family initially believed that maybe the FBI had done this to silence her. However, it was later revealed that no, the FBI didn't do this. Instead, she was kidnapped, R-worded, and unalived on December 12, 1975 by 3 members of the American Indian movement. Her family just couldn't believe that she was betrayed by those she trusted and by people she believed had her back. As of today, someone has been convicted for the murder of Annie Mae and has been sentenced to life in prison, but were more people involved? Her family believes that maybe higher level officials at the American Indian movement could have ordered her death because they truly believed that she was an FBI informant. It's been nearly 30 years since Annie Mae, a mother, a sister, a beloved friend, a human being, was killed. To hear more about what happened to Annie Mae, make sure to watch Vow of Silence on Hulu to uncover the truth, and let me know what you guys think about this down below.
This is a true horrifying story of what Jahannam really is. Jahannam is hellfire. It is a place of eternal punishment. It is believed amongst all religions. In some religions, like Christianity, hell is a spiritual dimension, so it's only the souls that are tortured in hell. But that's not really the case. Hellfire is a physical place. It does exist. It is a world just like any other world. It has valleys, mountains, and canyons. But it's not only a world. This thing breathes, it roars, it speaks. Hellfire is a beast. Hellfire eats sinners for a living. The more you feed it, the hungrier it gets. It is so big, it is chained by 70,000 chains. And on each chain, there are 70,000 angels pulling it. I'm talking about 4.9 billion angels. Do you know how big an angel can be based on Islamic narrations? An angel can tip over a country with the tip of one of its wings. Imagine the size of an angel. Now imagine 4.9 billion of them just struggling to hold down hellfire. Hell has 7 gates, and the guardian angel of hellfire is Malik. Malik is the only angel that never smiled. Let me tell you how terrifying this place is. In hellfire, there are clouds of acid. People that enter are given clothing made from fire. The temperature in there are millions of kelvins. Nothing compared to the sun. People in hellfire are privileged in size. God makes them so big. One of their teeth will be the size of Mountain Uhud. Why are they so big, you ask? So they burn slower. You will hear disturbing sounds of screams from people in there. They will beg for food and water, and they will be told to go down to the bottom of hell to find the tree of Zaqum. Zaqum is a fruit made in hellfire. It is so hot, one narration says if this fruit accidentally dropped on earth, it will burn down the whole globe. They will be given boiling water to drink. The water will be so hot, their faces would melt before they drink it. And if you decide not to drink nor eat, they will force feed you till you have a full stomach. Hellfire is also a place of ambush. There are other creatures in there that will attack you. I'll leave the rest for Mu'min Abu Mecca to explain. I'm not sure how other religions describe it, but in Islam, this is hellfire. And no one can sacrifice themselves for your sins.
Sounds like a terrible place. I would not want to go there. Whew. Seekers, if you guys made it with me to the end of the video, you're true seekers seeking the truth. I really appreciate the support. Make sure you guys comment down below. Hit that thumbs up button, man. Follow me on all my social medias down below. Guys are going to catch you in the next one, man. I'm out. Peace, YouTube.